What has Mark Davis done to keep the Raiders in Oakland? Well, I think that's a great question that my viewer Steve Macy asked me. And in truth, the answer is, for the most part, prior to the Vegas decision, nothing. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But I'm going to resist my desire to give a long story, and I'll say it just like this. Since Mark Davis took control of the Raiders, he and the organization have spent more time courting in order San Antonio, Carson, and Las Vegas as potential future homes for the Raiders than staying in Oakland. What Mr. Davis has done is the famous dual track of activity that he is known to ignite. You know what I said? Notice I said ignite, because the city of Oakland and developers like First Colony Capital and then Floyd Kephart had efforts to build Coliseum City, which included a stadium for the Raiders, but as Eric Grubin most notably pointed to, were more land development or plans than stadium development plans. During that time, the Raiders never once stepped forward with an actual stadium and financing plan that they presented that would then have to be filled in the blanks in certain areas by the city. Like, for example, we need the city for infrastructure. We got that. Or we need the city for, financing here or there. Okay? And Davis kept moving the ball in terms of what the financing needs were for his plan, rather than presenting something that was concrete, along with a model, along with an architectural design, and a video that shows what the facility would look like at the Coliseum, wherever they wanted it in Oakland. The Raiders have never produced anything like that, ever. However, they did for Carson, and they did for Las Vegas as well, but never for Oakland. That's how you show intent. It's one thing to say, I've got $500 million, or when he first talked to me about this in 2013, he said, I have $400 million. Then it ratcheted up by $100 million to reflect the fact that the NFL had added an additional $100 million for the home teams to retain their NFL teams. Home cities to retain their NFL teams, excuse me. But the bottom line is, in retrospect, what Davis has done was mostly cover. Just entirely. And they did favor the Kephart deal, but Floyd did not have the financial wherewithal, according to city officials, that he claimed to have, and so there was a desire on a number of fronts to move him out of the deal. Kephart was quite literally picking verbal fights with Eric Grubin in the NFL, who regarded Kephart as kind of a bad penny. In total, the whole process just was not working well at all. The city and the county weren't getting along on top of that, and they had disagreements that at times were made public by the media. So, but along those paths, Mr. Davis himself did not help to make the situation better by pointing a clear direction for the kind of stadium that he wanted, that would have gotten everyone excited and given everyone 1,000% certainty of his intent to have the Raiders remain in Oakland. That is a fact. What started this process, for the most part, was Steve Ballmer's purchase of the Los Angeles Clippers for $2 billion. And that purchase, which occurred about 3.5 years ago, caused, about 4 years ago, caused the NFL owners to go ape and realize, hey, we don't have a team in Los Angeles at all. And so I remember when the word about igniting the process to locate an NFL team in Los Angeles started anew, it wasn't clear who was going to run that. That was 2013. Now, eventually, Eric Grubman, the head of NFL Ventures, emerged as the person who would do that. But the NFL had more than just Grubman running it. They fashioned a complete public relations and policy strategy that was designed to leave themselves as close to impossible to sue as possible. But the bottom line is, and I told Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf this in 2015, the Raiders were consistently working at dual purposes. Even when she thought that Raider President Mark Bedane and owner Mark Davis were committed to keeping the Raiders in Oakland, they were working behind her back to establish relationships and build a strategy that would lead to a stadium in Carson. And I remember I revealed this to her prior to the NFL Spring League meeting in 2015, where I then took her issues essentially to Mark Davis. And I basically asked him why he was working behind the mayor's back. This has been a constant refrain through the history of Mark Davis as the principal owner of the Raiders and the city of Oakland. And then it was revealed in an ESPN article that Mr. Davis said to Grubman, I want to go to Vegas in 2014. And then he said that to another party, he never looked at Marty Lott's proposal because he was always intent on going to Vegas because he made a promise to Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval, whom I might add is termed out. I still don't believe that reason. I hold there's another entirely different reason for Davis' pursuit of Vegas that has nothing to do with any promise he made to the governor. I don't know what it is, but there is something. Something that has a dollar component. And perhaps it was Sheldon Adelson, and perhaps he blew that later, as we know. But coming back to the process of answering Mr. Macy's question, the fact of the matter is that Mr. Davis had not done what stadium developers and owners of NFL teams normally do. They buy land, hire an architect, hire a contractor, get all the political agreements done, work to that, and then set out the completion of a development agreement and other documents, and then begin construction. There is no point along that value chain of establishing the process for building a new stadium where you can turn around and say the Raiders were definitely going to build in Oakland. And I know what I say definitely in italics. There are a number of times where it looked like it, but the word definitely in italics never comes to play at all. Now, some of you are going to react, hey, didn't you get after the mayor about what she didn't do? And I did, but it was very pointed. Because even in that blog post, I noted Mr. Davis, quote, issues with working in good faith, unquote. I said that. The reason why I was upset with the mayor is because when you are working with the leader of an organization and an organization that you believe isn't working in good faith, the last thing you can do yourself is not work in good faith. You can't say, well, I have this property, I want you here, but in secret, there's another biotech firm that wants it, and I'm going to engineer a way to get you out of there by giving you a deal that I know you don't want. You give that organization everything it asks for. You put yourself consistently in the driver's seat. Okay? Mayor Schaaf didn't do that. Mayor Schaaf could have and can say, look, I want the A's at Howard Terminal. Here's my plan. Here's the financing. Willie Brown of San Francisco would have done that like that. Okay? That's what mayors are expected to do. If you're faced with someone that you are perceiving does not work in good faith, you cannot fight that kind of fire with not working in good faith and lack of definite direction. That was the problem. You don't let the athletics or the Raiders lead you. You lead them. Even when it appears that you're giving them what they want, you're always getting what you want. The mayor didn't handle it that way. If she would have had a clean path to be able to file a suit against the Raiders and say, hey, look, we've done everything, and they did that. No. But the mayor doesn't have, she has a path that's 80% clean. The 20% is the other problem. 80% isn't bad because it still does not clean up or erase or diminish the Raiders' lack of good faith. However, once the Raiders got what they sought, approval to relocate to Vegas, now they're dealing with a number of problems that in some cases they did not anticipate. The UNLV issue, for example. The community benefits issue, for example. The other costs related to the stadium, for example. The problems of working in a small market like Las Vegas, which it is, which impact upon the Raiders' ability to secure local revenues sufficient enough to effectively build their stadium. All of these are problems. All of these are problems. And because of where we're at in the process, some of these problems are not going to reveal themselves until later. Others, like UNLV, will reveal themselves. They've already revealed themselves now by the fact that we don't have an agreement. But over the next few months, as we get closer to the October deadline, we'll see if UNLV is simply trying to keep itself in a position to maintain its power and get a stadium, where it really wants to have the Raiders as a true partner. The Raiders, on the other hand, need to express that they want to have UNLV as a partner, and so far their deeds have not pointed to that, at least publicly. Then, on top of all that, the Raiders have said they want to stay in Oakland. They have more than said they want to stay in Oakland through 2019. They're working to do that. And it's not just because they want a solid place to play or they want to maintain their fan base. It's also because they're having difficulty. I mean, you have to just basically say this is the reason. Because if they can move easily to Las Vegas, if the path were easier for them, they would have announced that. But obviously it is not. Obviously they're having problems with UNLV. And note, they have not signed, and now don't have to sign, a non-relocation agreement. So they have an escape hatch. Note that throughout this entire process, the Raiders have had Oakland and then San Antonio as an escape hatch. Oakland and then Carson as an escape hatch. Oakland and then Las Vegas as an escape hatch. But now they have Vegas. And now Oakland becomes the escape hatch. That's where things set up. Is that a great way to do business? No, it's not. It is fraught with peril. It really is. Subscribe to Zenny62 and stay tuned to Zenny62. And please join us for our nightly Zenny62 live stream.